timely as possible. This is a weekly wrap up presented by the Conversation Project. This is for the week ending November 25th, 2023. We're almost done with the year. This is the last weekend of the 11th month and getting to December, and Christmas things are coming and the new year coming. But right now, one more week in November to get you through to get you into the whole shebang of stuff for the wrap up week. Now, this is the news you get straight from you. Now, normally we do a normally news podcast, video cast called Things You Might Have Heard. It gives you the top stories that from the morning that are curated by me to put it into the nice perspective. This is simple. This is just the top 10 stories per your pure engagement of the week on Twitter and Facebook. It's simple. You told me exactly what it is you want to talk about. For the weekdays, I play around with it a bit. Here, I'll give you exactly what it was that were the stories that were in top of mind. We also have some actual perspective with stories that were close to top of mind, 11 through 15. Most of these stories we actually talked about in the batch 15. This week was kind of a weird week because it was Thanksgiving week and a lot of people gone, so it worked out the way it did, I could say. Now, we also have real perspective on a story that you cared little about. This week is something that might be a bit more, you should have cared more about it. And that story is called the Almost Relevant Story of the Week. We call it that because it's usually irrelevant, but you don't give much attention. This story pans out at story number 227, the 227th story we posted this week. And this one might actually be something you should care a little bit more about. We'll explain that and how far away it was from the top story when we get to that one in a bit. Now, we want you to make sure you follow our website and our feeds on Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/this is conversation project and twitter.com/th_conversation. So you can let us know what stories to talk about every single morning and for this podcast here. We also want to remind you that we have another podcast that is birthed from this podcast, not grammatically correct, called the Story of the Week. One of the top 10 stories this week we will pull out into a separate feed podcast for you to listen to in more detail. Now, we do this because it's a story that you say you want to talk about, and it gives us a little something to kind of play around with. We hope you enjoyed this week's podcast because we hope you enjoy each week's podcast, but we think we're doing a good job of picking the story that you want to hear more of and respond to. We thank you in advance for that one. Now, one more time, the website, this is a conversationproject.com. The email address, the conversation inbox, gmail.com. Email us with anything you have going back and forth. We'll have some promotion. We'll have a little extra sales stuff because it is still Black Friday, Cyber Monday-ish weekend. So we're going to try to sell some extra stuff and have the same fun we always have. Let's get into the news stories right now for the week ending November 25th, 2023. These are the top 10 stories from 10 to 1 that you said were most engaging throughout this past week. Headline number 10, story number 1 we're covering, is Jessica Alba sparks a discussion about age on social media. This one lasted quite a bit of time. We posted it on Sunday, last Sunday, the 19th, and I think it actually happened or was live Friday or Thursday because the podcast that it was birthed out of was something in the week last week. But this turned into a long discussion through the middle of the week where Jessica Alba was described as a 42-year-old nine, essentially a hot mom, if you will. We won't go into any acronyms on this end. But the person that she was being interviewed by was basically saying that even though she's a 40-year-old nine, a 20-year-old six, basically a 26-year-old six, is always going to trump a 40-year-old nine because they're 20-year-old. And that was the point. She used a 26-year-old person who was, okay, but saying that because she was in her 20s and she being Alba being in her 40s would not match up. This caused the internet to go have a serious kerfuffle and just ask this chick, what the hell is wrong with you? Jessica Alba, who's of course been lusted over since she was a 26-year-old nine, even younger than that from Dark Angel times, is beautiful by all standards and means, and maybe a bit over beautiful by all standards and means if you want to go that route. But the reason why this person went that route was because she needed the clicks, she needed the views, she needed people into her podcast, and essentially she got that and got a whole earful, mouthful, handful of responses on Jessica Alba because 40-year-old nine always wins, period. We'll get to Dolly Parton and talk about that nine in quite a bit. We'll have that coming up as well, a little teaser on that one. Story number 9 this week porn star Ron Jeremy accused of rape to be released to private residence. Ron Jeremy is still serving a jail sentence. He's 70 years old, but he's declared incompetent to stand trial because of all sorts of health issues. He entered a non-guilty plea in that case after the grand jury indicted him on over 30 counts of sexual assault. Because he is in ill health, too ill to harm anyone, his lawyer said, he's going to be released to a private residency to basically live out his life and die in I guess whatever dignity you can get. This is the best way to cover this, basically, the court says, because it saves them the money of a trial, saves them the money of housing this guy, and just lets him go off in peace and more or less quiet. Now, you can go deeper in detail of the actual story and all the charges going forward. But this is not the same Ron Jeremy of 30 years ago from the fame of his actual fame. And if you don't know what he's famous for, well, you need to go look that up. But Ron Jeremy going to basically go to house arrest, even though he technically can't stand trial because he's just so in ill health to even try to deal with any sort of trial. This next story is a bit more complicated than it reads, but former Obama advisor Stuart Shelowitz loses job after a viral video shows him harassing challah cart vendor. We've had a lot of people in the last, I guess it's been 5-6 weeks since the actual attacks happening in Israel and going forth through the retaliation in Gaza. You can call it what you want to. It's essentially a war in itself, maybe not by full definition, but guess what? They're shooting at each other close enough. And we have a lot of issues with people going back and forth. A lot of firms in Capitol, in the White House, in the Capitol, essentially cutting ties with people for essentially taking a side of what's going on. And it's mostly people who are taking the Palestinian side of things as opposed to the it's Israel side. Here's a case where a former official that worked for Obama had ties cut with the lobbying firm he worked with, and just got on camera calling a challah cart vendor a terrorist. Why would he do that? Because he's got issues. But it's that simple. The man being Stuart Shelowitz, who worked for Obama as advisor, essentially lost his job for essentially yelling at a guy selling falafels on a street, calling him a terrorist. It's dumb. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. But what people are doing in responses to these things are dumb, stupid, and ridiculous. And what we're seeing right now is a lack of, not a lack of civility, because the civility has always been there, but sort of a lack of patience with how people are taking things. You should be able to have an opinion that's a contrarian opinion on things. People should be able to say, the Palestinians sort of have a right, because they sort of do, and that Israel should not be so hard on Palestine, which maybe they shouldn't be. But you also shouldn't just call random Palestinians terrorists and think that all Israelis should die because they exist, which is sort of the problem, because people are calling random Palestinians terrorists, and people believe that Israelis should die because they're Jewish. And there lies a problem. I can't fix it. I can only report on it, and we can have conversations about that. Story you called number 7 this week. Tiana Taylor secretly filed for divorce from Iman Shumpert in January. They've been separated for about a month or so, but guess what? Iman Shumpert's wife actually filed for divorce in January. There have been a lot of talk this year about Taylor saying that Shumpert has been cheating on her and been stepping out and doing a bunch of bad things in the marriage but we did not realize that the actual filings of paperwork was done literally in January. It's been 11 months since they've been working towards the divorce. I'm not sure how far that's been in the process, but that's is what it is. They've only been separated officially, in words, since September, but guess what? It's been a while. They have 2 children together. They're going to co-parent. That's the way there's going. They're still best friends, but apparently she can't trust him in the relation status, so that's what's going to happen. We did a YouTube short, TikTok, for this story, and got a lot of responses, and a lot of people were giving really good advice in this one, which is really good to see. The headline for number 6 reads, F1 fans file class action lawsuit against the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Las Vegas Grand Prix happened essentially 2 weekends ago, and it was by all means a hit success for the Grand Prix for F1. The biggest problem was there was an issue on day 1 of the practice rounds. Somewhere in a practice round on a Thursday, there was a incident where one of the drivers basically hit a water main and damaged his car. That's an issue for him. He also delayed the course being opened by hours because they had to clean the course and do whatever. And so it took the 90-minute practice session. They had to wait till essentially 2 in the morning to come back onto the track to watch the next session. People got on to practice because that's what they do. But the people who were in the afternoon on Thursday weren't coming back to 2 in the morning on Friday. Those people put out a class action lawsuit to sue Formula One to, for the money. Now, what was really cool about this and what the response was back and forth, there are a lot of people who were sympathetic for the people, but then there are people who understand the law and understand how these things work and events work. In the fine print for the event, just like in many places that you see where it's like for wrestling, for example, today there's a big wrestling pay-per-view tonight, or premium live event as they call them now. And they always say in the events, especially if there's a local event where they publish it for weeks, schedule card subject to change. If there's any sort of sporting event coming up there and you have a boxer versus a boxer and someone can't show up, they find someone else to fight to take that spot. The card is subject to change, so you can't sue because you thought you're going to see Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas showed up when Mike Tyson got sick. Although that's a very weird sort of analogy. That's what's here for Grand Prix. They're not liable for anything such as these things. The timing happens. So if something happened that was out of their control, the acts of God will, if you will, they can't actually sue for this. So we'll see if there's a loophole to get them people, the class action lawsuit, essentially get their ticket money back, plus maybe a little change back. We'll see if that works out. Chances are, because they have those subject to change rules in these events, because insurance makes those things happen, it's not going to happen. We had a lot of fun with this story a few times this week, including on a YouTube short, where fans are reacting to Neds Declassified stars revealing which shocking sexual acts they tried multiple times. There's a podcast for the fans of Neds Declassified. It's a show that was on Nickelodeon like 20 years ago, I guess, in those times where there are all these young people doing these shows. There's young people doing shows now, and now that you see what these guys were talking about, one, you wonder about what happens in Boys Meets World, and two, you wonder what's happening in the shows right now, how the Thundermans are living up their lives, as you will. Stars of the show, Devin Werkheiser and Lindsay Shaw, went back and forth about their intimate relationship and essentially snatched away any innocence that remained from the show in as far as swoop of one episode, even freaking out their co-star, Daniel Curtis Lee, who was like, what the hell is going on here? So they essentially talked about sexual acts that they did and trying to figure out which ones they actually remembered, because apparently Werkheiser said there were so many he couldn't quite remember which one she was referring to. Yeah, got that crazy. Go check out the links. Check out our story on YouTube, the YouTube short on that one, because we went slightly, oddly enough, within 60 seconds, we go into deeper detail of the story. And we're going to keep on moving from here. We're going to move on to story at number 4. A very, very serious story for this one. We did not cover this one in at the Daily Show, but this is one that popped up as a very big, very large response from you guys with engagement. Florida State QB Jordan Travis suffers college career-ending leg injury due to controversial hip drop tackle. This led to a lot of people, a lot of coverage of the hip drop tackle online. If you don't understand what it is, I'm not a football player and I can't explain it to you in 90 seconds as we roll for this story. So you need to go deeper in detail for how that works out. But a specific tackle that usually gets people hurt, although it is extremely effective in getting somebody essentially dropping them on their hip. This led to a leg injury that's going to end Travis's career. Florida State QB is was off to a fairly good start, but because of what happened, it is what's happening. The really sad thing is that they were up and they were doing well and they were having a great season, and then all of a sudden the season is over, and of course this career of football is over for this young man. Where he was going forward, who knows? Because at this point we know that because of the way his leg was broken, he should not be playing. Who knows? Maybe he'll find a way to get back. Sometimes these guys have nothing else to do, so they feel they have to go back to the sport. We'll see what happens for Travis. It's amazing how this is only the number 3 story this week, but the Canadian border explosion, $300,000 Bentley driver killed in crash with businessman and was businessman with wife. So apologies for the bad read there. This was a story that happened the day before Thanksgiving, where a person driving a Bentley went to the Canadian border from New York at the Rainbow Bridge. Something happened. Car literally accelerated, hit the air, went airborne, crashed into another gate, exploded, killing the man and woman inside and injuring a person manning another gate. This turned into a big kerfuffle about, was there terrorism on the rise, because we have those thoughts going on right now. No, this was just a simple incident. What was the motivation of the person doing it? We still don't really know, but it took a few days to release the fact that he was a New York businessman, and that the fact that his actual identity was released, I believe, yesterday or early this morning. We have a story in the feeds somewhere in the weekend that will tell more details on the story going forward. But this seems to have been just a error, a mechanical error, driver error, when he, punched the gas instead of the brake, or hit the brake too hard and it accelerated. It's just an issue with the car that made it happen. It was not a terrorist act. He was not trying to attack anyone. He wasn't even in a real scuffle with the person at the gate. It's just something that seemed to happen. We'll go deeper in detail as we get more engagement with the story and tell you more about that. But essentially, the car going airborne, 50 yards in the air, just flying in the air, crashing onto the Canadian side of the park, and shutting down all access to Canada from New York for most of the day, and for Thanksgiving, a good chunk of the day, for just the Rainbow Bridge. As high as this one came up, it was one that was like, I don't think this one's going to really resonate. But then when the numbers came through for the end of the weekend, it's the number 2 story of the week. Scientists sound the alarm as the world briefly smashes through 2-degree warming limit for the first time. And this is one we probably should have put more emphasis in, but I think we had some sort of, well, we had a lot of things dealing with the Survivors Act, so a lot of guys being sued for sex acts from 20 years ago. So that probably took up a lot of our attention. We thought those were more conversational. You obviously wanted to talk about this one. The global average temperature briefly rose above 2 degrees Celsius on Friday last week, according to preliminary data shared by a prominent climate scientist. This means the planet is getting steadily hotter and hotter and moving towards climate crisis impacts. This is something that we probably should be talking about. The global temperatures on Friday, this last Friday, averaged 1.17 degrees above the 1991-2020 levels, making it the warmest November 17th on record, but 2.06 degrees warmer than the pre-industrial times. The breach of 2 degrees came 2 weeks before the UN COP28 climate conference in Dubai, which seems kind of weird they're having in Dubai, as they're doing all sort of weird things in that nation, which seems to be fighting off climate because it's a desert and is turning into a lush green place in the middle of the desert. But the magic going on there is a whole another bitch of sorcery for that one. We probably should be talking more about climate change because it's here. It ain't going anywhere, and we can't fix it unless we at least, or slow it down unless we at least acknowledge it. Luckily, more people who were not acknowledging it are acknowledging it, so we're getting better with that. Now we pause for a quick moment for the number 1 story. We have to give it the love it deserves for what it did to reach this spot. So here are some stats for this story. This story is both the top Facebook and Twitter story of the week. It's just that big. It's just that massive. It's just that much engaging. The actual engagement numbers, how more engagement was than the last story on climate change, 226.88%. And this story is more engaging than the story at the very bottom of the day. As you said, that story is listed as number 227. It's a long way to go. How far to go? 1,273,900% more. There you go. What's more engaging than that story at the very bottom? Guess what? It's still Angel Reese from LSU. LSU star Angel Reese has been benched by coach. I don't even remember. We talked about this. We had a brief bit of business, and we had 2 or 3 stories this week which actually brought this up because it got really, really heated. We finally got an understanding of what happened with Angel Reese, or we have a brief understanding. Head coach Kim Mulkey, who dresses in the weird coats, is still sort of ruling the roost, as LSU is still doing very well. Only lost 1 game so far, I believe, of any note. Here's the thing. Angel Reese, the all-star double-double queen, who led LSU to his first women's basketball championship in March, missed a couple more games. She's been benched. And the beefing behind the scenes, there's a locker room issue where basically the mothers of some of the players are not so happy with Angel or Angel's mom. And it all boils down to the fact that Angel Reese may not be very smart, or more importantly, Angel Reese has very, very bad grades. Remember that other guy that played for LSU? No, that not that guy, that other guy that played for a year because he just had to go someplace. Ben Simmons, and then he went to the pros, and now everybody's like, why do we put all this love into Ben Simmons? Because he's not as great as we thought he was. He just went there, barely went to class, barely did anything, got his year in, and then went to the pros to do whatever, and not very well at that in some cases. Much better than I, not better than others. Angel Reese seems to be in that same boat. She seems to not care very much about her grades, or if the you know if the truth be told, maybe she just isn't very good at school. Period. She's there because she's a good player, and they've propped her up all they can, and now they seem to not be able to. Their GPA seems to be what's keeping her on the bench, not any other disciplinary action, but it's bad enough that they don't want it to be a distraction or a very obvious thing out there. We shall see how this thing plays going forward. Yeah, but it's just what's happening. It's is what's happening. And for some reason, y'all love Angel Reese, the 6'3" guard who played 2 seasons in Maryland for transferring to LSU, is on top of her game and basically ready to go to the pros or wherever her next step is. This might be the shot where she's going to do that. We have what's called the story of the week, and that story is one of the top 10 stories we just talked about here. We take one of those stories, actually take the full list of top 10 stories, and put them in a different order by their different their headlines, so we can kind of battle the headlines we like back and forth and get to the top story of the week. The top story is a story we will do another podcast and a separate feed for you to enjoy or you to jeer, whichever way you want to go with that. This week's top story is going back to story number 10. Jessica Alba sparks a discussion about age on social media. The runner-up story is fans are reacting to Neds Declassified stars revealing which shocking sexual acts they tried multiple times. That story, the twist we're going to put on that one was essentially going to be how the age of innocence and all these teen dramas have people doing all these things. Now, we hear a bunch of stories, of all the things that happened past. Here's stories about the old Mickey Mouse Club way back in the day. What are these kids actually doing, and why do we let them get away with it? Because we don't know. And now some things we know. For Jessica Alba, it's pretty simple. A 40-year-old 9 will not beat a 20-year-old 6. Period. Ageism in the age of the internet is getting a little out of hand. And I say that now as I'm now basically a 50-year-old dude dealing with the 20-year-old kids who were acting like I did when I was 20 and looking at 50-year-old dudes or whatever. It's an ageism thing. It's an issue for the internet, and the way with so much extra internet, actually no internet when I was their age, so that's part of the thing. How we address and how we deal with and how we look at youth and age is a crazy thing. We're going to talk about youth and age in the age of internet craziness coming forward. So find that in a separate feed coming forward. We're going to take a quick break right now for some ads and for some promotion because we have to. Extra ad break today because Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all that great stuff. So bear with us, just a little extra stuff. But we have to do these things to pay the bills, as we say. That gets really cliche, but it is what it is. This is a weekly wrap up for the week ending November 25th, 2023. Thank you so much for being with us. Back in a moment. Let's talk about our sponsor we want to highlight for this week, and it's AppSumo. Mostly because it is Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals, and AppSumo will take good care of you with your Black Friday, Cyber Monday stuff for your business and your personal life and your just professional stuff. AppSumo allows you to get great deals and great software and great packages to use for productivity, for AI, for writing things, and you get most of these things are lifetime deals. Most of the things you pay one price and you use it literally forever. And these aren't companies that are going away. They're brand new companies. They're upstarts. They're people trying to gain a little traction in some of the newer industries or some that are brand fresh, new things. And they just need a little bit of help, a little bit of influx of cash, a little bit of way to get more users to try their things and use it for it. And so AppSumo is a great way for me to lose money every single month, or not something lose it, but spend money on things that are good for me for great prices that you never know you really need it till it's there. like I said, AppSumo will give you great deals, especially for the next couple of days, because Black Friday sales are going on all the way through middle next week. So check out AppSumo for that app that you're looking for that thing you're needing. If you don't want to pay full price for the big guy stuff, check out one of the little guys. They're going to give it to you for a great price, either a great deal off the first year, or in most cases, they're all literally deals for life. You pay one price, you have it for life. There's so many things that I use through AppSumo because I have lifetime deals that even if newer and sometimes better, more popular things pop around, I've already paid for this thing and it does what I need to do. And those things, you get updates as they update the softwares, you get those updates as well. So somebody else may bypass these guys as a better product. Guess what? If they're good enough and you're paid for them, you won't care. Check out AppSumo at our link. This is theconversationproject.com/AppSumo. This is theconversationproject.com/AppSumo. That's AppSumo. Tell Uncle Noah I said, hey, as you got a great deal, especially on this Black Friday weekend. We're also selling books on this Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend. You've already had your chance to hang out with the fam on Thanksgiving and had those fights. You still got Christmas time to fight. And Christmas time is very poignant to the next product that we're going to promote. My newest book, Mastering Your Money. Go to Amazon and look for it in Kindle or paperback format and get prepared for your January 1st New Year's resolution on getting better at money, or your fight you want to have with your folks at Christmas about the money that's being spent. It's simple. Get the book. They're very simple things, 13 simple things, very simple actions you can do to work on your money habits. And I say simple, and what's really want to say is they're not mean. They're not overbearing. They're not, rice and beans and rice for the next 12 years while you sell your boat and live in a shack. These are little things you can do. Most of them you probably thought about and just had to figure out ways to implement, with little ways to implement them that we are literally doing together. My wife and I are working through these things for the next, however, till we get our money a little bit better. She's always been great at money. I had to do some research and write a book about it to see what I need to do because I'm that guy. Check out Mastering Your Money on Amazon or wherever other books are sold. It's actually sold through various other vendors. I can control it through my Amazon link. So we have a paperback, which is on the left picture, I believe, and the Kindle version on the right, based on how the inversion of the things for watching the video. But check it out. Search for Mastering Your Money with my name, J. Cleveland Payne, on Amazon, and get this book today and be prepared to fight with your folks in 25 days. Well, 30 days, because today's the 25th. 30 days till Christmas. Let's move on to promoting. The Conversation Project is here, online, wherever you want to be. You can find us online at thisistheconversationproject.com. That's our main website where you can find the replays of everything we produce, including some things that you may not expect to have. If you don't want to see me or hear me, you can just see the links to all these things. We put them out in a newsletter form that has a copy at our website, so you can find subscription links to that. You can find subscription links to our videos and our audio places online as well. You can find more information about what we do, the mission of the Conversation Project, and how and why it gets done the way it's done. We brought up the feeds earlier, and that's Facebook and Twitter, or X. This is the Conversation Project on Twitter. I'm sorry, on Facebook, and th_conversation on Twitter and X. That's where you can follow along and tell us what to talk about every single day and the weekend as well. You can also email us at theconversationinbox@gmail.com to give me some perspective there. But I really need you to consider going to our sponsors page and going to our partnerships page to help us do more things for the upcoming year. There's a lot of things that we are in a nexus year this year that circumstances well beyond anyone's control stopped some momentum, and then somehow we found a little extra momentum on the back end. But there's a lot of things we need to do to push forward, to keep things going. And if you're enjoying this, you're listening this far or watching this far, then maybe it's time for you to help us step things up. See if you want to help us out by going to the Conversation Project's website and stopping by the partnerships or the sponsors page to help us out. And we're back to the news. The news is back on. Now we're getting to the almost ran stories 11 through 15, stories that didn't quite make the top 10. But some of these stories we did actually talk about in the Daily Show because we had that much range. Some stories we missed and we probably should have put more into. Story number 11. Totally missed it. But Suki Waterhouse appears to announce she's pregnant with first child. First child with Robert Patterson. I don't know who Suki Waterhouse is, which is probably why it got sort of scanned. However, she is attached to Robert Patterson, the vampire guy, and we're going to see how this one plays out. Let's move on to very quickly the next story, which we've been covering quite a bit, and that's the Marvels. We're still covering it, even though it's got no money. Box office goes from bad to worse with catastrophic second weekend drop, dropping down about 80% of box office, only making about $10 million in its second weekend. The Marvels is struggling at the box office and showing up that it is the worst Marvel movie ever by money standards. Maybe not so much by the acting or maybe so much by the action, although it's a bit on the sillier side, but we're going to find out exactly what happens in the next upcoming movie. I'm not sure which one is next, but people are basically getting really, really tired of the Marvel product, if you will. We're going to see how this thing plays out in the next upcoming Marvels and whether or not the next batches of Avengers will be must-see watching movie stuff, or it's just going to have to die on its own. At number 13, this one literally just happened, and people are still have their eyes kind of bulging out. And it's the only reason why I think this one did not make top 10 is because a lot of these stories were from the weekend and had a few extra days to kind of pick up some steam for some engagement. Dolly Parton dresses as Dallas Cowboy cheerleader for a revealing halftime performance. We pulled it from Rolling Stone, but of course everybody pulled it from everywhere. Dolly Parton had a mixed review performance on the halftime show. Most people were like, how is Dolly Parton 77 years old and out here looking like she's an actual Dallas Cowboy cheerleader? This is your 77-year-old 9 knocking out any 20-year-old 6 out of the park because she's got it. And if you don't think she's got it, I think you need to start doing some crunches right now because you've got to work on that stuff. So she came out dressed as Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. She didn't do much movement on stage, but she knocked out Jolene, 9 to 5, and then some of her new rock songs, We Are the Champions and We Will Rock You. Some people thought, well, she wasn't holding the mic, so maybe she was lip syncing. It seemed like she had a headset mic on from what I could tell, but it didn't matter. She looked great. She saved Thanksgiving. She made Jack Harlow look like an idiot. She made the NBC night game look stupid because they didn't even show. They was a DJ. They just like, dude, we're not gonna fight this fight. Dolly Parton wins. Dolly Parton puts on the best Thanksgiving Day show ever. Well, maybe not ever, but it's ranking up there like the one they had back there with Creed. Because after watching Jack Harlow, people was wondering, where the hell is Creed? At number 14, Jamie Foxx sued for sexual assault. Jamie Foxx is being sued for a sexual assault by a woman, and this is when I got confused because this is actually tied up in the rape law that is wrapping up or has wrapped up in New York City. I thought this was a newer one, and it just so happened to be a newer one, but this one is also wrapped up in that Survivors Act law. So many people in the last couple days, including Axl Rose, including Sean Diddy Combs twice, including Eric Adams, were wrapped up in this one. A lot of people caught up in this one. New York opened up a statute of limitations, basically waterfall, for a year that wrapped up on Thursday. And so there are a lot of these cases where a lot of famous people, and I'm not sure if it was meant to catch famous people or just people in general, got sued for this. So many cases now in the books. We'll see how they play out going forward. And number 15, this story a little bit silly, a lot silly if you will. After massive Super Bowl bet, outraged Dave Portnoy plans lawsuit against Bengals and NFL. I don't think he's actually going to go along with this, but Dave Portnoy put a big bunch of money on the Bengals to win the Super Bowl this year. He put it up early because that means it's a big windfall bet to get that. Then Joe Burrow goes down. And so now he's going to sue the Bengals and the NFL for basically lying about his injury, saying that he was not as injured as they thought he was. And then when he got injured, like for reals, the fact that he made it worse. He bet $67,000 on the Bengals winning the Super Bowl. He lost $100,000 when they lost to the Ravens. So that's on a single bet there. The Ravens are right now winning everything, or at least winning the AFC North, so they are a favorite to make it to the playoffs. We'll see how they play going forward. Another quick pause to remind you that our website is thisisaconversationproject.com, and our email address is conversationinbox@gmail.com. you can go to our website and learn more about us and follow our feeds and follow what we do and find ways to find us at the website and email us directly. It's absolutely free to tell us what we can do to work on things. Now, if you go to the website, you can click on the partnership page and maybe you'll join up as a partner. You can follow us at all the places we are, YouTube, Facebook, all the links are there as well. But make sure you use that email address because we want to get your feedback on how we do things every single day. And the feeds on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/This is a Conversation Project and Twitter.com or X.com/TH_conversation. Every single day, every 50 minutes or so, we are posting new. You just have to like, love, hate, share, engage in the stories, and the higher engagement a story gets, the higher chance we have of talking about it in the next show, or in this show for the weekend, or in the weekly wrap up, which this is, or the story of the week, which is one story from the weekly wrap up. It's that simple. We need you to follow the feeds. We need you to email us, and we would like you to join us as a partner. All that stuff is great. What didn't turn out so great was the story we're calling the almost relevant story of the week. As I told you earlier, this story is less engaging than the top story this week, which was all about Angel Reese not playing basketball by over 1,000,000%, 1,273,900%. What story did you care that little bit about? Well, stories you probably care a little bit more about. Here's the headline as it's read, coming from abcnews.go.com. Public schools across the country plagued by high lead levels in drinking water. Now, we're not going to go deep into the story because it's pretty obvious by the headline, but many schools across the nation are dealing with issues with old pipes and high levels of lead in old pipes. This is something that you should worry about. Now, right now, many schools are still carrying bottles of water because of COVID-19 stuff. So that may have eliminated some of the issue with people ingesting lead from old pipes. But most schools have actually gone back to having water fountains, even if they're still carrying water bottles. My daughter is still carrying a water bottle, but they've installed the fountains that you hold over and that they refill your bottles instead of leaning over to touch it. So you don't have to touch the thing. That way, you're not contaminating anything that way. Yet the water remains. Our water here in Arkansas is actually pretty good, pretty awesome water, if you ask me. And so that's not a real issue here, we don't think. But around the nation, many schools with very poor infrastructure are dealing with lead in the water. It's everywhere. In some cases, it's worse than others. This is one we probably should be taking more care about as well. This is one you probably should have put more attention into. However, if you did, we literally wouldn't be talking about it because it'd be somewhere in the middle of the mix of 227 stories and not at the very, very bottom for the day, of the week, I should say. But it is at the bottom of the week, and since we hit the bottom, we're done for the week. This has been the weekly wrap-up for the week ending November 25th, not 35th, wow, 2023. Thank you so much for being a part of our show today. Guess what? 30 days till Christmas. 30 days till Christmas. 30 days till Christmas. Just want to throw it out there. In the meantime, make sure you're following us on our feeds on Facebook and Twitter so that we can get the stories you want us to talk about on the digital air. And make sure you're following us at our website so you know what we're doing and how these things mean, what they mean to other folks. Email us to tell us what they mean to you, whether good or bad, and consider being a partner, if you will. Prepare yourself for the story of the week. We will go into how young people think not so old people are really old these days and talk about how Jessica Alba is beautiful and she will continue to be beautiful whether she is 46 or 86 or whatever. We'll throw some Dolly Parton in there as well because she knocked it out of the park yesterday. In the meantime, make sure you're staying limber, staying hydrated, staying on task for all the grand things you're here to do. 30 days till Christmas. That means we're not too far out for the next year, so make sure you are here to start off the new year on a grand level. We will do the same here, doing our best for that one. Let's get at it. Let's get at the more stuff. Let's get back to the feeds, if you will, so we can make sure we have plenty of news to talk about. I'm Jay Cleveland Payne, wrapping up for this week. What will be the top 10 stories for next week? You have to wait till next week. Well, first, you have to help us find them, and then wait till next week to find them out. Till then, thank you.